Welcome back to another lesson in this series. Today I'm talking about painting waves, and it's a nearly impossible task of summarizing how to paint all waves in less than 10 minutes. And of course that's crazy because there are so many different coastal areas in the world. But let's get going. I want to tackle this by color or time of day, starting with earlier and going later. The absolute first question to ask about any scene is composition. Are there enough interesting elements to be painted and to make someone look at the painting? Not every beach has rocks, which is why we can focus on wave and foam shapes. Typically, not head-on. Head-on shots promote symmetry in our brains as we paint, and the next thing you know, you've got a boring painting. This first example offers nearly every type of wave: cresting, broken, even rolling foam. The broken wave is more interesting than simply a crest because it offers extra shadows and shapes. Now, as the wave crests, the lighting on the face darkens, and some light comes through the top. This is where we get translucence. This is easily painted by blending a few light strokes into the darker base. You can see the foam colors are usually blue and purple, and a little lighter than the background sea. The greens in this case are far from pure, mixed with lots of red. The next painting focuses on the power of the sea, a deep blue background with mostly white and gray wash up front. The shadow color of the wave face and crashing foam should be painted first. This allows the white highlights to be put in on top and assures that you're going to have a good value contrast. The spray is made by simply blending and lightening the background color. Along the same theme of powerful waves are foam bursts. Watercolor creates soft edges that can be very attractive and add a soft quality to all the surging, forceful mass of water. Watercolor also causes painters to focus on shadows, since creating highlights is more difficult. When you paint with watercolor, usually you're painting shadows and achieving highlights by leaving them, whereas with oil painting you're often painting everything and then painting highlights in at the last minute. So our brains try to even out foam bursts and make their shapes regular. And what do? We fight this tendency by raising a few areas and avoiding horizontal lines. Now as the day progresses, the light grows warmer and actually promotes translucency and other lighting effects that midday does not, even though midday contains effects such as glare. This example shows a strong play between light and shadow, giving a dancing path of light to the main wave in the background. The sky at this time has many grays and greens in it, even yellows, and also the water since it reflects the sky. So think of painting the water and foam like steps. You have shadows on the vertical edges and you have light on the top of these steps. If you can visualize these steps, basically what you're doing is setting up in your brain a lighting scheme which makes everything more believable. In order to create strong highlights, the shadow areas must be dark, and there must be light grays beneath the highlights so that they have even further value contrast. In this scene there is no pure white. The highlights are all tinted with yellow or orange. Now the ability of this golden hour to create shadows does wonders for composition. You don't often see a seascape in the portrait format, but it can be done. This one uses a long curving path to lead into the background. Look at the foam. Look at the shadows of the foam. Unlike in the previous example, this path is not really broken very much because the vantage point is so much higher. We're looking down at the waves and we're not really from a low vantage point where we have layers upon layers upon layers stacked in front of us. Make sure you paint the areas of open water first and you smooth the gradient between dark to light. This makes painting foam on top much easier. I mentioned earlier that we usually try to avoid head-on waves. Well, sometimes you can get away with it if the lighting is interesting enough. The key to glare is value contrast. Whites must be placed over darker surroundings. But there's also a great amount of glow in this painting. The glow is created by not just lightening colors, but also shifting them. So for example, The foam and wave faces are all shifted towards the light brown of the sky. The background sea, take a look, really, take a look. The background sea is especially tinted towards brown and orange. Now, go over to the right side of the painting and you're going to see a shift away from that brown and orange over to more greens and blues. So that's what I'm talking about when I say glow is created by shifts of not only value but also shifts of color. Sometimes a painting is all about color, and you look for far more than just blue. Pick out browns and grays. Look for warm and cool masses. In the end, the values play a major role in whether waves have a shape. Be sure to include darker shadows under the foam and on the wave faces. If you step back from a painting and it makes sense, then you've done it. If you step back from a painting and something doesn't look right to you, if you step back and the abstract shapes don't jump out at you and say, hey, this is a wave, go in and try and darken up certain areas, such as beneath foam and on wave faces. If you have to go for simplicity, try adding something in the background. The warm colored headland here is a perfect match against the blue sky and turquoise wave. So that brings up another point. The wave color is almost always greener or even bluer than the flat water. The flat water tends to be more gray. And the reason for this is just the fact that the flat water reflects sky. Now, in the case of daytime, the flat water sometimes can have more blue than the wave face, and the wave face is going to be darker. But since we're talking about later times in the day, go for more color in the wave face. It's always important to stack shapes on top of each other whenever possible and paint nearby objects into one another. This means that if you paint a rock, you don't try and paint around the rock, because when someone looks at the painting they see, you kind of painted around that rock. It looks like it's just stuck there. So we paint shapes into one another, we continue lines through other objects, and we try to layer. This creates depth in a painting. The layers of rocks and waves here give the viewer something to explore. It gives them a world that they could imagine walking into. To give shape to the wave face also, I add oval foam patterns rising up and even over the top of the wave. These can only be seen on the wave face because of what's facing us as the viewer. You know, we can't really see the flat horizontal surface because just of where we're looking, but as we look out and the wave rises up, the foam becomes more circular. Another thing is never leave a wave lonely. So, its foam crashes down and tumbles into the water before it, creating a sort of frame in the painting. This just goes back to layering. If you do want to go for mainly horizontal lines in a painting, mix it up a little. Horizontal lines give a feeling of peace, relaxation, and meditation. This works really well at the end of the day. However, they're not really exciting pieces, so if you're expecting to sell this art, this may not be the best thing. However, people out there are looking to buy this sort of art if they're interested in it. It's up to you to determine, what are you trying to sell? Are you trying to sell an exciting piece? Or are you trying to sell a relaxing piece? And here's a better idea. By placing in a diagonal line of rocks or foam, you gain just a little extra interest. So you